Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome back to our next video lesson. We're still going to talk about functions, as you can see from the title here. So I thought what we would do is we would create a calculator to solve the surface area and the volume for a rectangular prism. So this is really what I'm looking for right here. Given a rectangular prism, which is a 3D rectangle, what is the surface area and also what is the volume, which is this equation right here. So basically what we have is the width, the length, and the height of a 3D rectangle, which we call a rectangular prism, and then we can calculate what those values are. So I'm going to go back over here to Visual Studio. As you can see here, keep your eyes over here on the name property. This is txt length, txt width, txt height. This is btn submit, and finally this is lbl output. So I'm going to double click on the submit button so I can start typing code. I'm going to minimize these guys, and of course we have to have our comments like declarations, get user input, calculation, and finally output. Now before I do any coding within the btn submit click event, let me go ahead and create a couple of functions. Now, as I've mentioned to you in the past, subs are chunks of code that we call to do a particular job, and they don't return anything. A function like this is something that you call and it will return something. Okay, so let's say calculate surface area is the name of our function. Now, do you need something calculate surface area in order for you to do your job? You bet I need something. You need to give me the length, the height, and the width of a rectangular prism in order for me to do my job. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll say by val. Now this is a word that just simply means give me a copy of. Okay, so whatever you have, like if I'm throwing you a frisbee, I'm going to clone the frisbee. I keep the original. I toss to you the copy or the clone. That's what this means. You have the original. So what we're going to do is you're going to send to me, let's say the length. I'll put PAR, which is an abbreviation for parameter, as, and I think we should probably have it so that you send me doubles, because the user could type in a side of 2.5 or 3.4. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole number or an integer, so I better take into consideration that the user could give me a real number, a decimal number, so I'll make that a double. All right, comma. So what that means is I'm giving you more than one thing to do your job. I've just given you one thing, but I need something else. So we'll say by val width parameter as double, comma, by val height parameter as double. Okay. All right, so what this thing so far is saying is that you are sending me three things in order for me to do my job. What is my job? To calculate the surface area. I can't do my job unless you give me the length, the width, and the height. And by the way, when you do that, I'll say as, and then I'll return a double. So what this thing over here means is I will give you back this, but you have to give me all of this. So the stuff within the parentheses, we call those parameters. We call those arguments. And so what I'm asking for you is to give me the length, the width, and the height, and then once I finish my calculation inside here, I will return back to you a double, namely the surface area, because that's what the purpose of this function is. So the reason why we have this green squiggly underline is I haven't returned anything yet, but I'm about to in just a moment. Okay, well, what am I about to return? So we'll say return space. Now let me figure out what the equation is for surface area. It looks like it's 2 times, okay, so we'll say it's 2.0 times, and I'm going to put an open and close parens, put my cursor right back inside the open and close parentheses. What is it? Width times length. Okay, so over here it's called width parameter times the length parameter plus height times length. Okay, so the height parameter times the length parameter plus and height times width. Okay, so height parameter times width parameter. And let me press enter. Notice that green squiggly underline is gone because I have fulfilled my role as a function and returning something. So if I throw a frisbee to a friend, I expect that frisbee to be thrown back to me. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm expecting you to return something. So I could do this approach. I'm going to comment this out and show you another approach. What I could have also done is this. I could have said, okay, let me go ahead and create a variable called surface area. And that's going to be a double. Now, surface area is going to be, and let me just go ahead and copy and paste this. All right. And then I could have said return surface area. Both of these approaches are perfectly acceptable. Here I kind of broke it out a little bit by declaring a variable surface area. Surface area is going to be this calculation, and then I return it back to you. This one line does exactly the same thing as this. So they're both equal approaches. One is a little bit more consolidated, actually a lot more consolidated, and then one kind of breaks it out. So there's no right or wrong way. It just depends on you. I have a tendency to do stuff like this because I like my programs to be readable. Here you can exactly see what I'm doing. I want to create a surface area variable so that I can solve for it, and then I give it back to you. Well, I'm really doing the same thing here, just consolidating that. Okay. All right, so that is the calculate surface area function. Why don't I go ahead and create another function? I can go down here. Notice that I am not putting my cursor after class. So this is a catastrophe. You never want to do that. Put code over here. So let me get rid of those spaces and put my code inside here. You're always inside of the class function.
Could you, if you wanted to add comments, class?
Yes, you could. Yeah, because comments truly aren't code. Yeah. Okay, so over here I'm going to create another function. Now this function is going to be calculate volume. See, this guy over here was calculate surface area. Here we're going to calculate the volume. Now, again, for me to calculate the volume, let me go back to my web page over here. In order to calculate the volume, what am I going to need? Well, I'm going to need the width, the height, and the length. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here because really that's the same. That's what I need to do. I need to give you something. Let me press enter. You need the length, the width, and the height in order for you to do your job. Now when you're finished, this as double says I will return the volume as a double when I'm finished with my calculation. Some of you may be asking, hey, Professor Solis, why do you put par? Couldn't you just put length, width, and height? Absolutely, I could. And if you did that, that would be perfectly acceptable. What I tend to do as a practice, and it's not necessary, when I see the letters par, what I'm saying is the thing that was given to me is a parameter. And it's specifically a length parameter, or a width parameter, or a height parameter. But could I have put the same word as the calling function? Yes, or the calling instruction, I should say. Yes, I could have just put length, height, and width. All right, so over here, what am I going to do? I'm going to return the volume, and it looks like it's width times height times length. Okay, so I'm going to return the width parameter times the height parameter times the length parameter. There we go. Of course, could I have broken it out by creating a variable called volume, and then volume is equal to this, and then return the volume? Yep, I could have. That would have been perfectly acceptable. In this particular example, I'll just leave it with that one line of code. But you know that you could have broken it out if you wanted to. Well, now that I have these tools that I've created, the calculate volume and also the calculate surface area, I can use these. So remember, these are functions, they return values. Okay, so let me go back over here in declarations, and what do I need from the user? It looks like I need the length, the width, and the height. That's what they're going to give to me. So we'll say dim length as double, dim width as double, and dim height as double. Okay, so those are the things that the user is going to give to me. Now, what am I going to give back to the user? Well, certainly I'm going to give them some sort of a string output, which I'll assign to nothing at first. And that string output is going to be something like the surface area equals, and then maybe the next line will say volume equals, you know, whatever that happens to be. So I'm going to give something back to the user. So in an attempt to try to make my programs more readable, maybe I should create a surface area and a volume variable. So we'll say surface area as double, volume as double. I don't have to do this. I could have consolidated everything, but in an attempt to be as readable as possible, I'll create those two knowing that I have functions that are going to give me the answers, and I'll assign them right to there. Well, the next thing to do then is to get the user input. So the length is going to be, we'll say convert dot to double, and I'm going to get that from txt length, which is this guy right here, dot text. Don't forget that. The width, convert dot to double. Again, that's going to come from txt width dot text, and then finally the height. So convert dot to double txt height dot text. So I've obtained the user input. Now I can perform a calculation to determine what the surface area and the volume are both equal to, because I have a function, two functions in fact, to take care of those. So over here in the calculation, I'll just say surface area is going to be, now let me stop right here. What did I call this function? Calculate surface area. And what does it do? It returns a double. So over here, I'm going to call calculate surface area. Now, what do you need? Well, over here you can see what it needs: the length, the width, and the height. Okay, so I'm going to send you the length. Notice I send it in order, comma. Now you need the width, and then comma. Now you need the height. Now that would be terrible if I sent these out of order. I'm expecting you to send the length, the width, and the height in this particular order, because that's how the calculate surface area works. Send me the length, the width, and the height. So what happens is when I call this function, it's going to take that length value and copy and paste it here. It'll take this width value, copy and paste it here. It'll take that height value, copy and paste it here. So if this is 1, 2, 3, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Now in this function, we're calling it length parameter. Here in this function, we're calling it length. Right? So it's like me going home and my son calls me daddy and my wife calls me honey. Same person, same value, just being referred to in a different way. Okay. Now, I guess where the analogy breaks down is this really is a copy. And so if I did something crazy like this, check this out. If I said length parameter equals 2, say for example. If I did something like that, it would not change length, because length is something small under the umbrella btn click, right? This is a sub right here. So this, and this, all these in fact, they belong to this bigger umbrella. These guys over here belong to this umbrella, a separate umbrella, right? That are referring to the value as something else. So if I change this, I am not changing this, because this is a copy of this. And therefore, if I change the copy, I'm not changing the original. Does that concept make sense? So let me get rid of this, and let me do the same thing for volume. So the volume is going to be calculate volume, and it looks like you need the length, the width, and the height. Okay, so the length, the width, and the height. You need those things in order for you to do your job. All right, now that I've called those functions, they are going to return values and place them right back over here. So I call this function, it calculates something, it's going to return the value over here. All right, well now that I have that, I can go ahead and perform an output, which is to send something to that label at the bottom of the form. So lbl output.text. And why don't I just do this? We'll say surface area, and then whatever the surface area happens to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concatenate that with the value of surface area. Now I think what I'll do is, how about this? I'll say surface area dot toString. And let me give it a certain number of parameters, like I'll say f2. What that f2 means is give me only 2 numbers after the decimal point, a fixed number of digits after the decimal point. Then what I'll do is I'll say VB new line. Now what the VB new line does is it mimics you pressing enter on the keyboard. In other words, it goes to the beginning of the next line. Now that I go to the beginning of the next line, I'm going to concatenate that with a word that says volume, and then I'll need to concatenate that with the volume parameter. So we'll say volume dot to string, and again I'm going to use this F2. Give me a fixed number of digits after the decimal point, specifically 2 of them. Not necessary for me to go to the end of the line, so in fact that's it. Save my work. All right. So you see the beauty of functions is that you can create a chunk of code and you never have to create that chunk of code again. It's something that you can copy and paste to your future programs. In fact, this is really the way that you would work in a team. A team would have maybe 4 or 5 programmers, say for example. And this one programmer is going to work on calculating the area. This programmer is going to work on calculating the volume. This other programmer is going to work on this and that. And then we bring them all together. So it's like you create the screwdriver, you create the hammer, you create the wrench, and then we bring these tools together and use them for whatever the project is. All right, so let me go ahead and run the program. And let's go ahead and give a value of, let's say, 2, 3, and 4. So over here, it's saying that the surface area is this, the volume rather, is this. Notice only 2 numbers after the decimal point. Let me verify this. So I'm going to go back over here to my program and enter, let's see, what did I have here? Length, width, height, length, width, height. Okay, good. So I'm consistent. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And the volume is 24. And let me check the surface area. Again, 2, 3, 4, and 52. So 24 and 52, perfect. So it looks like my program is working. Of course, I want to check to see if it can work with real numbers, numbers with a decimal point. So let's see here, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. Let me submit, and it looks like it's 71.5, 39.38. Let me just do a quick check. So we'll say 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and it looks like the area is supposed to be surface area, that is 71.5. Yep, that's what it is. Okay. And that is it. So that's the thinking and the procedure behind creating functions. Create your functions first. Once you've created your functions, then go back to your main function or sub, which in this case is our btn click, a btn submit click event, and then go ahead and begin to create your program now that you have those functions ready to go. All right, so this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.